A dark sky once held stories instead of stars. Our ancestors looked up at the moon and across vast forests, and they did not see empty space. They saw gods battling in thunderstorms and heroes woven into the constellations. This is a journey through 30 enchanting myths of nature and the cosmos, the most profound stories ever told about our world. You will discover how ancient cultures from every corner of the earth explained the sunrise, the changing seasons, and the very creation of the universe. We will uncover why a Japanese goddess hid in a cave, plunging the world into darkness, and how a tiny spider brought fire to a frozen world. These tales of creation, love, and betrayal are the fabric of our shared human history. What part of the natural world has always filled you with the deepest sense of wonder before any god or mortal walked the earth? There was only a vast, yawning nothingness known as chaos. This was not merely empty space, but a formless, swirling potential from which the very first things would emerge. From this void sprang Gaia, the solid ground, the living earth herself. Then came Tartarus, the deep, terrifying pit that would become the foundation of the underworld. And with them emerged Eros, the force of love and desire, the irresistible pull that would bring order to the formless dark. Gaia, alone and powerful, gave birth to Uranus, the starry sky, and then took him as her equal. Together, they became the parents of the Titans, 12 immense beings of incredible strength and power. Their names echo through time like Oceanus, the river that encircled the world, and Cronus, the clever and ambitious youngest. This was the first family of the cosmos, a divine order born from chaos. But this order was fragile. Uranus, fearing the power of his own children, the Cyclopes and the Hecatoncheires, hurled them deep into Tartarus. Gaia, grieving and enraged, crafted a great sickle of adamant and turned to her Titan sons for help. Only Cronus was brave enough, or perhaps cunning enough, to answer her call. He lay in wait, and when Uranus came to embrace Gaia, Cronus struck, severing his father from his power and establishing a new, brutal rule. This myth is the bedrock of Greek legend, explaining how a universe of raw potential was forged into a hierarchy of warring powers. It sets the stage for everything that follows, for the rise of the Olympians and the epic struggles that would define their world. The story of chaos and the Titans is not just a beginning, it is a warning about the nature of power and the inevitable conflict between one generation and the next. But this brutal new rule under Cronus would not last forever. Far to the north, in a world shaped by ice and fire, a different kind of cosmos took root. It was not a hierarchy of gods, but a great living architecture known as Yggdrasil, the world tree. Picture an ash tree of impossible scale, its branches stretching high above the clouds and its roots digging deep into the foundations of reality. This was the axis of the Norse universe, a sacred pillar that connected all 9 worlds in a delicate, trembling balance. One of its 3 great roots reached into Asgard, the shining realm of the gods. Another sank into Jotunheim, the harsh and frozen land of the ancient frost giants. And the third, perhaps the most ominous, delved deep into Niflheim, a world of primordial ice, mist, and the dead. This was not a peaceful tree. It was a world of constant struggle and renewal. At the very top, perched among the highest branches, lived a wise eagle, its keen eyes watching over all that transpired. But coiled around the deepest root in Niflheim was the monstrous dragon Nidhogg, who ceaselessly gnawed at the tree's foundation, trying to corrupt it from below. Between them, the squirrel Ratatoska ran up and down the trunk, carrying insults from the eagle to the dragon and back again, fueling their eternal feud. This incredible myth presents the entire cosmos not as a collection of separate places, but as a single, interconnected organism. The health of the gods in Asgard was tied to the suffering in Niflheim. The wisdom at the top was perpetually challenged by the decay at the bottom. The world tree was alive, it felt pain, and it held everything together in a beautiful, precarious harmony. It was a universe that required constant vigilance, a system where every creature, from the highest god to the lowest worm, played a part in sustaining the whole. While the Norse saw the cosmos as a great tree, the ancient cultures of Australia envisioned creation as something that arose from a vast, sleeping potential. This was the Dreamtime, a sacred era when the world was soft and formless. Mighty ancestral beings, often taking the shapes of kangaroos, emus, and giant serpents, awoke and began their epic journeys across the empty continent. As they traveled, their very movements sculpted the land. Where a great kangaroo leaped, a mountain range rose. Where a serpent slid through the dust, it carved a deep riverbed. But it was not just their physical forms that shaped the world, it was their voices. They sang as they walked, and their songs were a powerful magic. Each note, each rhythm brought forth the waterholes, the deserts, and the forests. The very stars above were notes in this celestial songline. This is why the dreaming is not a story that happened long ago and is now finished. It is a living, eternal reality. The land itself is the proof of those ancestral journeys, and the songs used in ceremonies today are the very same ones that first gave the world its shape. To know the land is to know the story, and to follow the story is to follow the law of how to live in harmony with all creation. It is a profound connection between people, place, and a spiritual framework that has endured for thousands of years. The continent of Australia is not just a place where myths occurred, it is a living manuscript written in the tracks of the ancestral beings. From the timeless songs of the dreaming, we journey to the sands of ancient Egypt, where the sun itself was a god engaged in a desperate nightly war. Every morning, the sun god Ra was born anew, ascending into the sky aboard a magnificent solar bark, a boat of pure light that brought life to the world. But his journey was not a simple arc across the heavens. Each sunset marked a descent into the terrifying realm of the underworld known as the Duat. Here, the bark of day became a vessel of night, navigating a treacherous river through 12 gates, each one guarded by hostile demons and fearsome serpents. The greatest threat of all was the serpent god Apep, a colossal embodiment of chaos, darkness, and pure nothingness. Apep did not seek to rule, he sought only to unmake creation itself. Every single night, Ra and his divine crew, including the god of wisdom, Thoth, and the warrior goddess Sekhmet, had to battle this monstrous serpent. The fate of the entire world hung in the balance with each confrontation. If Ra failed, the sun would never rise again and chaos would swallow the earth. His victory, repeated each dawn, was a cosmic reaffirmation of order over chaos, of life over oblivion. This daily rebirth was not just a celestial event, it was the central pillar of Egyptian life and kingship. The pharaoh was not merely a ruler, he was the living representative of Ra on earth. His primary duty was to maintain Mot, the sacred principle of order, truth, and justice, against the constant threat of Isfet or chaos. Just as Ra fought Apep in the underworld, the pharaoh fought the forces of disorder within his kingdom. Every sunrise was a testament to their shared victory, a divine promise that the carefully structured world would hold for one more day. Even the sun can turn away in sorrow. In the luminous world of the Japanese kami, the gods, the sun was not a distant ball of fire but the goddess Amaterasu, whose radiant light was the source of all life and order. Her brother, Susanoo, the storm god, was a force of wild and unpredictable chaos. After a particularly destructive rampage that ruined Amaterasu's sacred rice fields and defiled her temple, her grief and rage became absolute. She could no longer bear to look upon the world her brother had violated. Retreating into the heavenly rock cave, she sealed the entrance with a massive stone, plunging the entire cosmos into an unending, silent night. Without her light, the lands grew cold, crops withered, and spirits fell. The wailing of 8 million gods echoed in the perfect darkness, a symphony of despair. How do you coax out a sun that has lost all will to shine? The gods' new force was useless. Instead, they crafted a plan of pure, irresistible allure. They hung a magnificent string of curved jewels and a sacred mirror on a sakaki tree outside the cave. Then, the goddess Yuzium, the embodiment of mirth and the dawn, overturned a tub and began to dance upon it. Her dance was not one of grace, but of wild, ecstatic abandon. She stamped her feet, whirled with ferocious energy, and in a moment of divine comedy, she loosened her clothing. The roars of laughter from the assembled gods shook the very heavens. Curious about the source of such boisterous joy in a world she had left for dead, Amaterasu cracked open the stone door just enough to peer out. She saw her own dazzling reflection in the sacred mirror, a light so brilliant and beautiful it drew her fully from her hiding place. Another god quickly sealed the cave behind her, and light was restored to the world. This story is a profound lesson in the power of community, laughter, and art to heal even the deepest wounds. It explains why the sun disappears and returns, turning a terrifying event like an eclipse into a story of reconciliation. The mirror, the jewel, and the sword used to lure her out became the three sacred regalia of Japan's imperial line, symbols of a rule blessed by the sun itself. A world plunged into darkness by a grieving sun is a stark reminder of the delicate balance between order and chaos. But what if that balance was not simply maintained, but actively forged through an impossible alliance between sworn enemies? This is the magnificent paradox at the heart of the Hindu churning of the ocean of milk. The Devas, the gods of order and light, found their power waning, their immortality fading. Their eternal rivals, the Asuras, the demons of chaos and power, faced the same existential threat. Forced into a temporary truce, they agreed to work together to churn the primordial ocean and bring forth Amrita, the nectar of immortality. Their method was as audacious as their goal. They uprooted Mount Mandara to use as a giant churning rod. The great serpent king, Vasuki, consented to be the churning rope. The Devas took hold of Vasuki's head while the Asuras gripped his tail, and they began to pull, spinning the mountain in the ocean's depths. Yet this cosmic endeavor required a foundation, so Lord Vishnu, the preserver, took the form of a giant tortoise, Kurma, diving to the bottom of the sea to support the massive mountain on his back. As the churning began, the first thing to emerge was not a treasure, but a deadly poison so potent it threatened to consume all of creation. The world gasped on the brink of annihilation. It was the god Shiva who intervened, swallowing the poison to save the universe. The venom was so powerful it turned his throat blue, earning him the name Nilakantha, the blue-throated one. Only after this great sacrifice did the ocean begin to yield its wonders. From the churning waters rose the moon, which Shiva placed in his hair. Then came the goddess Lakshmi, the embodiment of prosperity and good fortune, who chose Vishnu as her eternal consort. Apsaras, the celestial dancers, emerged along with the divine white horse Achcheshravas and the wish-fulfilling jewel Kostubha. Finally, the physician of the gods, Dhanvantari, appeared holding the pot of Amrita. The temporary alliance shattered instantly. A fierce battle for the nectar erupted. It was Vishnu, once again, who ensured the Devas would prevail, using his magic to secure the immortality for the forces of light and order. This epic is far more than a fantastical battle. It is a profound allegory for the human quest for enlightenment. The ocean is the mind, and the churning is the intense spiritual discipline required to stir its depths. The emerging treasures and poisons represent the various distractions, powers, and ego deaths one encounters on the path. The ultimate goal is not merely immortality, but the liberation of the soul. It suggests that even the forces of chaos have a necessary role in the universe, for without their immense strength, the mountain could not be turned. True enlightenment is not a gentle process, but a turbulent, collaborative, and transformative upheaval that requires confronting every part of oneself. Chaos is a force that even the most perfect creation must eventually face. In the beginning, the Chinese creator goddess Nuwa shaped humanity with her own hands, molding figures from the rich yellow earth. These were not crude forms, but intricate beings imbued with a spark of her own divine spirit, and she delighted in the world they built. Yet this golden age was shattered when the water god Gong Gong, in a fit of rage after losing a titanic battle, smashed his head against Mount Baju, one of the great pillars that held up the sky. The pillar shattered, the heavens themselves tore open, and the very fabric of the world began to unravel. A catastrophic flood poured from the rupture, while fires raged unchecked across the land. Fierce beasts emerged from the shadows to prey on a terrified humanity. The entire cosmos was tilting toward total collapse. Nuwa could have watched her creation perish. She could have withdrawn and started anew, but she did not. Her response was one of profound, determined repair. She journeyed across the world to gather stones of 5 distinct colors, each representing a fundamental element of the cosmos. With immense effort, she melted them down in a divine furnace, creating a radiant, multi-hued paste. Then, reaching into the heavens, she used this magical mortar to carefully patch the great tear in the sky, sealing the chaos back out. But the sky was still unstable, sagging without its proper support. So Nuwa sought out a giant celestial turtle. She made a solemn, difficult decision, cutting off the great creature's 4 legs. She carried these colossal limbs to the 4 corners of the world and set them up as new, unshakable pillars, holding the sky firmly in place once more. This is why the sky tilts slightly to the northwest and the earth slopes to the southeast, a permanent reminder of the original damage and the repair that followed. The myth of Nuwa is a powerful celebration of diligence and restoration. It tells us that things do not need to be perfect to be saved, that a broken world is worth mending. It offers an ancient explanation for natural disasters, framing them as cosmic accidents, not divine punishments, and it presents a goddess whose greatest act was not creation itself, but the courageous, compassionate work of preservation against impossible odds. Even a king who built great walls could not build a wall against death. Gilgamesh of Uruk, 2/3 god and 1/3 man, ruled with unmatched strength and pride, yet the loss of his beloved friend Enkidu shattered his divine confidence. Enkidu, a wild man shaped by the gods from clay who had become Gilgamesh's brother in arms, succumbed to a withering illness. Watching his companion die transformed Gilgamesh's mighty heart into a vessel of pure terror. He saw his own future in Enkidu's still form and embarked on a desperate, unprecedented quest, not for glory, but for the one thing his divine blood could not grant him: escape from mortality. His goal was Utnapishtim, the Mesopotamian Noah, the sole mortal to have been granted eternal life by the gods. The journey itself was a passage through the very architecture of the world. To reach Utnapishtim, Gilgamesh had to cross the Mount Mashu, the great mountain that held up the dome of the sky, a place where no mortal had ever ventured. The entrance was guarded by terrifying scorpion beings, half human and half monster, whose gaze was death. They recognized the mix of divinity and desperation in him and allowed him to pass, warning that his path led through 12 leagues of absolute darkness. For a day and a night, Gilgamesh walked in a blackness so complete it had no end, groping his way forward until he finally emerged into a garden of gems, a place of unearthly beauty. He found Utnapishtim, who revealed the secret of his own survival of the Great Flood, a story that mirrors the fragility of life and the whims of the gods. But Gilgamesh wanted a secret for himself, a way to reverse the decay he feared. Moved by his relentless anguish, Utnapishtim's wife persuaded her husband to offer the king one final chance. He told Gilgamesh of a plant that grew at the very bottom of the sea, a plant with the power to restore a man's youth. Though exhausted, Gilgamesh tied heavy stones to his feet, sank into the abyss, and seized the thorny prize. He had done it. He had conquered the natural order and held rejuvenation in his hands. But the universe, it seems, has a way of reclaiming its balance. On his journey home, triumphant and weary, Gilgamesh stopped to bathe in a freshwater spring. He carefully set the precious plant on the shore. In that moment of vulnerability, a serpent, drawn by the plant's scent, slithered from the reeds, snatched it, and immediately shed its skin, emerging renewed. The plant was gone forever. Gilgamesh sat down and wept. His great journey, his suffering, his triumph, all had ended in the simple, cruel logic of the natural world. This is perhaps the oldest written story that asks a question we still grapple with today. Why do we, who can build cities and conquer kings, remain powerless against the turning of the seasons within our own bodies? The serpent's theft was not a malicious act, but a reminder that life cycles, from decay to renewal, are a force far greater than any single king. Gilgamesh returned to Uruk a changed man, not because he found immortality, but because he finally learned to see the enduring beauty of the city he had built, a different kind of legacy etched not in years but in stone. A king's quest for immortality ends with the quiet wisdom of a serpent's renewal, but in the deep, ancient forests of the Celts, the cycle of life was not a curse to be overcome, but a sacred dance to be honored. There, among the towering oaks and misty glens, the people revered a god who was the very embodiment of the wild world around them, Cernunnos, the Horned One. He is an enigmatic figure known to us today from carvings on stone altars and the magnificent Gundestrup cauldron, a figure of immense power and profound peace. He is most often shown seated in a cross-legged pose, a posture of deep meditation, a quiet lord in the heart of the chaos he commands. From his head grows a magnificent rack of antlers, not as a helmet or a crown, but as a living part of him, a symbol of his unbreakable bond with the stag and the forest itself. His very image is a testament to a world where humanity was not separate from nature, but a single thread woven into its vibrant, living tapestry. He is surrounded by creatures of every kind, the boar and the serpent, the bull and the hound. He holds a torque, the Celtic symbol of nobility and power, in one hand, while in the other he often grasps a ram-headed serpent, a creature that beautifully unites the concepts of earthly wealth and chthonic mystery. This is not a god of conquest, but of communion. Cernunnos did not rule the wild from a distant throne. He was the wild, its spirit-given form. His domain was everything that grew, bred, died, and was reborn. He was the god of the fertile field and the deep, dark forest, the protector of all animals and the guardian of the underworld, the portal through which all life eventually passed and from which it might return. His antlers tell the whole story. They are a symbol of virility and masculine power, yet they are shed and regrown every single year in a powerful, visible rhythm of death and resurrection. This cycle was the heartbeat of the Celtic world. The people saw this pattern everywhere, in the falling of autumn leaves and the green shoots of spring, in the hunt that took a life to sustain life. Cernunnos was the divine expression of this essential truth, a reminder that life feeds on life, that decay is not an end but a necessary prelude to new beginnings. To honor him was to acknowledge humanity's place within this great wheel, to live with respect for the forest and its inhabitants, and to understand that true power lies not in domination, but in harmony with the untamed forces of the world. Deep within the Andes, a different kind of creator walked from the waters of a high-altitude sea. In the beginning, there was only darkness and the vast, silent expanse of Lake Titicaca. From its depths, the god Viracocha emerged, a being of immense power and purpose, bringing the very first light into existence. His first act was to command the sun, the moon, and the stars to rise from the lake and take their places in the void, painting the dark canvas of the sky with a brilliant, ordered design. But his work was not yet done. He then began to sculpt the first humans, not from dust or clay, but from the enduring substance of the earth itself, from stone. He breathed life into these stone figures, creating the ancestors of all the peoples of the Andes. Yet Viracocha was not a distant architect who simply built a world and left it to its own devices. He became a wandering teacher. He traveled across the harsh and beautiful landscape disguised as a humble, bearded old man. He walked from village to village, teaching humanity the foundations of civilization, the arts of agriculture, the principles of morality, and the skills needed to weave and build. He performed miracles, bringing springs of fresh water forth from barren rock, his very presence shaping the culture and the land simultaneously. He gave names to all the rivers, mountains, and valleys, imbuing the entire Inca realm with a sacred geography that was both a map and a scripture. When his work was complete, his journey took a final, mysterious turn. He traveled to the western coast of the continent, and without a boat or any visible aid, he set out walking across the surface of the Pacific Ocean. As he disappeared into the horizon, he left behind a promise that he would one day return. This promise became the bedrock of Inca imperial authority. The Sapa Inca, the emperor, was believed to be a direct descendant of Viracocha, a living god whose right to rule was woven into the fabric of the cosmos itself. The entire empire, from its terraced mountainsides to its precise astronomical alignments, was a testament to the creator's original design, a world brought forth from darkness by a god who walked among his people. High above the ordered world, the thunder god Perun ruled from his mountain fortress, his authority as sharp and clear as the lightning bolts he wielded. Below, in the tangled roots of the world tree and the murky depths of every swamp and stream, dwelled Veles, a god of a completely different nature. He was the master of the wet, fertile earth, the lord of cattle, wealth, and the mysterious underworld. Where Perun represented the structured, celestial law of the heavens, Veles was the spirit of the raw, untamed, and endlessly creative chaos of the world below. Their conflict was not a simple feud, it was the fundamental engine of the Slavic cosmos. The tension would begin when Veles, in his serpentine form, would slither up from the underworld to commit a profound theft. He would steal Perun's divine cattle, the clouds themselves, or sometimes even his children, drawing the very sources of celestial order down into his chaotic, fertile domain. This act could not go unanswered. Enraged, the mighty Perun would erupt from his high place, a storm god in pursuit. He would chase Veles across the sky, hurling his lightning axe down at the serpentine god as he fled. The brilliant flash of lightning was the divine weapon striking, and the rolling thunder that followed was the sound of the cosmic chase echoing through the heavens. But this was not a battle with a final victor. Each time Perun seemed to triumph, driving Veles back into his watery realm, the foundations were laid for the cycle to begin anew. The people saw this eternal struggle reflected in their own lives. The thunderstorms of spring and summer were the visible proof of Perun's righteous fury, cleansing the world and breaking a drought. Yet they understood that Veles's initial theft, his drawing of the celestial down to the earthly, was what brought the life-giving rains that made the crops grow. This was a necessary conflict, a divine partnership expressed as a rivalry. The changing of the seasons was the most powerful evidence of their struggle. When Perun was dominant, the skies were clear, the sun reigned, and the world was governed by his celestial order. This was the bright half of the year. But as the days grew shorter, Veles would slowly gain the upper hand, pulling the world into the damp, dark, and hidden time of autumn and winter. The earth entered a period of fertile potential, a chaos that was not evil, but simply a different kind of power waiting underground. The return of spring was Perun's great victory, striking down the forces of darkness and stagnation to allow life to burst forth once more. This myth presents a universe built on a beautiful, necessary tension. It was not a war of good versus evil, but a perpetual dance between two opposing yet complementary forces. The heavens needed the fertile chaos of the earth just as much as the earth needed the cleansing order of the sky. One could not exist without the other, and their endless, dramatic struggle was the very reason the world turned and life continued. Even the sun's daily path could be challenged by human will. For the Polynesian people navigating the vast Pacific Ocean, The length of the day was not a fixed law but a hard-won concession. The great trickster hero Moi watched his people struggle. The sun, La, raced across the sky with such speed that there was never enough daylight for the essential tasks of life. Food could not be properly cooked, topper cloth could not be dried, and the work of fishing and farming was forever cut short. Moi decided this cosmic injustice would not stand. He gathered his brothers and proposed an impossible mission: to journey to the very edge of the world, to the pit where the sun rose each morning, and tame its furious pace. His brothers were terrified. The very idea of confronting the source of all light and heat seemed like pure madness, a certain path to being incinerated. But Moi was a master of persuasion and magic. He reassured them with a cunning plan and the strength of his most powerful artifact, a formidable fishhook fashioned from the jawbone of his divine ancestor. As they traveled through the night, the brothers' fear was a palpable force, but Moi's resolve was a steady flame. They reached the sun's pit just before dawn and hid themselves, weaving ropes from strong, braided flax. When the first brilliant edge of the sun peeked over the horizon, the brothers, with hearts pounding, threw their ropes. They snared the sun's fiery limbs, lassoing its immense rays. The sun roared in shock and fury, struggling against its bonds, but Moi stood firm. He raised the sacred jawbone, a tool that had once fished entire islands from the sea, and brought it down upon the captured sun, not to destroy it but to demand a bargain. He spoke to the sun as an equal, negotiating for the survival of his people. Beaten and humbled, the sun had no choice but to agree. It promised to move more slowly across the sky for half the year, granting the long, warm days of summer that allowed life to flourish. This was not a story of defeating a god, but of entering into a new relationship with a cosmic power. It explains the very rhythm of the seasons we experience, framing the long days of summer as a direct result of one hero's courage and cleverness. Moi did not steal fire or create the world. He rearranged its schedule for the benefit of humanity, proving that even the most fundamental cycles of nature could be questioned and with enough bravery reshaped. The world we stand upon was born from the ashes of 4 previous failures. According to the Aztec people, our entire existence is merely the latest attempt, a fragile 5th world that emerged after a cycle of total cosmic annihilation. The first age, the Son of Earth, was ruled by the god Tezcatlipoca. Its inhabitants were giants who fed on pine nuts, but this world did not last. Tezcatlipoca himself was struck down by his rival Quetzalcoatl, cast into the sea, and in his rage he transformed into a monstrous jaguar that descended from the sky, devouring every single giant. The second age, the Son of Wind, was governed by Quetzalcoatl. This world was destroyed by hurricanes so powerful they scraped the very mountains flat and scattered its people, who survived only by being transformed into monkeys. The third age, the Son of Fire, was presided over by the rain god Tlaloc. It ended in a rain not of water but of fire, a global conflagration that consumed everything and turned its inhabitants into birds. The fourth age, the Son of Water, was ruled by Tlaloc's wife, Chalchutlicue. She wept so ceaselessly for her people that her tears flooded the entire world, turning the surviving humans into fish. Each of these ages represented a different element, and each ended in a cataclysm that wiped the slate clean. After the fourth destruction, the gods gathered in the sacred city of Teotihuacan, existing in a profound and silent darkness. The question before them was simple and terrifying. Who would power the next world? Who would have the courage to become the new sun? 2 gods stepped forward. One was Tecusistecatl, a wealthy and proud god adorned with magnificent feathers. The other was Nanahuatzin, a humble, diseased god covered in boils who worshipped in quiet poverty. A great pyre was built, a divine fire that would transform a sacrifice into a celestial body. Tecusistecatl approached first, but when he felt the searing heat of the flames, his courage failed him and he retreated 4 times. Then it was Nanahuatzin's turn. Without a moment of hesitation, he closed his eyes and threw himself into the blaze, his body crackling and burning with a fierce light. Shamed by this act of ultimate humility, Tecutistecatl followed, leaping into the ashes of the fire. As the gods watched, two suns rose in the sky, but this was an impossible, unbalanced world. One of the gods, furious at Tecutistecatl's cowardice, threw a rabbit into the second sun, dimming its brilliance and scarring its face, transforming it into the moon we know today. And so the fifth sun, the sun of movement, began its journey. But this world carries the burden of its origin. It was born from the sacrifice of the humble, not the powerful, and its fate is already written. The Aztecs believed our world is destined to be destroyed by violent earthquakes, a final, shaking end to the cycle. This was not a story of hope, but of cosmic responsibility. It was the duty of humanity to nourish the sun with their own life force, to stave off the inevitable through ritual and sacrifice, feeding the celestial engine that had been set in motion by a poor god's incredible act of courage. A challenge arrived at King Arthur's court, not with a declaration of war, but with a game. The great hall fell silent as the doors swung open to admit a figure unlike any they had ever seen. He was a giant of a man, his skin and his fine clothing the vibrant, impossible green of summer leaves. He rode a green horse and carried a massive green axe. This was the Green Knight, and he embodied the wild, ancient world that existed beyond the castle walls, a force that did not recognize the order of knights or the codes of chivalry. His challenge was as bizarre as his appearance. He offered to allow any brave knight to strike him once with his own great axe, on the condition that the knight would then seek him out in 1 year and receive a blow in return. The court was stunned into silence. It was a test that seemed to defy all logic, a pact with the raw, cyclical power of life and death itself. Sir Gawain, the youngest and most earnest of Arthur's knights, stepped forward to accept this strange bargain to protect the honor of his king. With a single, swift swing, he cleaved the Green Knight's head from his shoulders. To the horror of everyone present, the body did not fall. The Green Knight simply stooped down, picked up his own head by the hair, and held it aloft. The eyes opened and the mouth spoke, reminding Gawain of their agreement. He was to travel to the Green Chapel in 1 year to receive his stroke. Then the figure turned and rode away, leaving a court gripped by a new kind of fear. Gawain's quest, when the time came, was a journey into the heart of that untamed world. He traveled through a harsh and lonely landscape, a world of bitter cold and deep forests, a stark contrast to the warm, ordered safety of Camelot. He finally found shelter at a mysterious castle where the Lord made a curious bargain. He would go out hunting each day, and whatever he won in the forest, he would exchange for whatever Gawain had gained in the castle. For 3 days, this game played out. The Lord brought back the spoils of the hunt, the bounty of nature taken by force. Meanwhile, his lady, in the Lord's absence, attempted to seduce Gawain. The knight, bound by his chivalric code, accepted only innocent kisses, which he dutifully passed on to the Lord each evening in their exchange. On the 3rd day, however, the lady offered him a green silk girdle, a belt she promised would make him invincible. Fearful of his impending meeting with the Green Knight, Gawain accepted it and, breaking his word, kept it a secret from the Lord. This single act of self-preservation, this small human deception, was his only failure. When Gawain finally stood before the Green Knight at the Green Chapel, he braced for the death blow. The axe swung down 3 times. The first 2 fainted, nicking him only slightly, but the 3rd cut drew a thin line of blood on his neck. The Green Knight then revealed himself to be the lord of the castle, and the entire year-long ordeal had been a test orchestrated by the enchantress Morgan Le Fay. The 3 swings of the axe corresponded to the 3 days of the exchange. The small wound was for Gawain's 1 moment of dishonesty, for clinging to the magic girdle out of fear. The Green Knight was not a monster to be defeated, but a teacher. He represented a nature that is both fearsome and forgiving. It demands respect and honesty, and it tests our virtues not in grand battles but in small, private choices. He sent Gawain back to Camelot humbled but wiser, wearing the green girdle not as a trophy of victory, but as a permanent reminder of his own humanity and his connection to the wild, regenerative world that both challenges and sustains the realm of men. A promise can arrive in a time of great need, walking across the plains in the form of a woman. Two young Lakota hunters scouting for their hungry people saw a figure approaching in the distance. As she drew nearer, they saw she was a woman of breathtaking beauty, clad in a radiant white buckskin and carrying a bundle in her arms, but her beauty was a test. One of the hunters was filled with impure thoughts and moved to embrace her. A cloud suddenly enveloped them, and when it cleared, the woman stood alone, and the impulsive hunter was nothing but a skeleton, a stark lesson in the power of reverence. She then spoke to the second hunter, who had kept his gaze lowered in respect. She instructed him to return to his village and prepare the people for her arrival, for she brought a great gift. The chief and the people prepared a sacred lodge, and the woman, now known as the White Buffalo Calf Woman, entered their circle. She opened her bundle to reveal the chanunpa, the sacred pipe. She showed them how every part of the pipe was a part of the universe, the wooden stem representing everything that grows upon the earth, and the stone bowl embodying all the four-legged creatures and the earth itself. The smoke from the burning sacred tobacco would carry their prayers to the Great Spirit. She then spent days with the people, teaching them the 7 sacred rites that would structure their spiritual life, including the sweat lodge for purification and the sun dance for renewal and sacrifice. Her work complete, she left the people walking slowly across the plains. As they watched, she transformed, rolling upon the earth and changing her form. She became a black buffalo, then a brown one, a yellow one, and finally a pure white buffalo calf before disappearing over the horizon. This was not a farewell, but a promise. The appearance of a white buffalo calf in the world today is seen as a sign of hope and a call to prayer, a reminder that the sacred is always near and that all of life, from the grass underfoot to the clouds above, is profoundly and beautifully connected. The grief of a mother can freeze the world itself. Persephone was the radiant daughter of Demeter, the goddess who made the crops grow and the fields flourish. One day, while gathering flowers in a sun-drenched meadow, the earth suddenly split open. From the chasm emerged Hades, the stern god of the underworld, who swept Persephone into his dark chariot and carried her down to his shadowy kingdom to be his queen. Demeter heard her daughter's fading cry and searched the entire world for her, her despair so profound that she neglected her divine duties. The earth grew cold and barren. Leaves fell, flowers withered, and a relentless winter fell upon the land, threatening all of humanity with famine. The other gods, seeing the suffering, finally intervened. The messenger god Hermes was sent to the underworld to negotiate with Hades for Persephone's release. Hades agreed to let her go, but he was cunning. Before she left, he offered Persephone a single pomegranate seed. In her hunger, she ate it. That simple act, the consumption of food from the land of the dead, created an unbreakable bond. A compromise was brokered by Zeus himself. Because Persephone had eaten the seed, she was bound to the underworld for part of each year. For 6 months, she would reign as its queen beside Hades, and during this time, her mother Demeter would mourn, and the earth would enter the barren seasons of autumn and winter. But when Persephone ascended to the world above to reunite with her mother, Demeter's joy would cause the earth to erupt in a celebration of life, bringing forth the blossoms of spring and the abundance of summer. This myth does more than explain the turning of the seasons. It is a story about the bittersweet transitions of life itself, about the necessary balance between joy and sorrow, life and death, the world above and the world below. Persephone is not merely a victim, she becomes the bridge between these two realms, understanding both the sunlight and the darkness. Her story reminds us that even in the deepest loss, there is the promise of return, and that the most beautiful spring always follows the coldest winter. Even the protector of the gods can be caught unawares. Thor, the mighty god of thunder, awoke one morning to find his hammer, Mjolnir, gone. This was no simple theft. Mjolnir was not just a weapon, it was the divine instrument that guarded Asgard and Midgard, the realm of humans, from the chaotic forces of the giants. Without it, the gods were left vulnerable, exposed to the whims of their ancient enemies. Panic spread through the golden halls. It was the clever, unpredictable Loki who discovered the culprit. He borrowed Freyja's feather cloak, a magical garment that allowed its wearer to fly between worlds, and soared into Jotunheim, the land of the giants. There he found the giant Thrym, smug and triumphant, sitting on a throne with Mjolnir hidden 8 leagues beneath the earth. Thrym confessed to the theft and laid out his price for the hammer's return. He would give it back only if the beautiful goddess Freyja was given to him as his bride. Loki flew back with the impossible demand. Freyja's reaction was immediate and furious. She refused so vehemently that the walls of her hall shook and the precious necklace at her throat shattered. The gods were plunged into despair, their one hope seemingly extinguished. But Loki, ever the schemer, saw another path, a plan so audacious it bordered on madness. He proposed that Thor himself must go to Jotunheim, not as the god of thunder, but disguised as the bride Freyja. The idea was absurd. Thor, with his burning eyes, powerful frame, and famed appetite, was the least bride-like figure imaginable. His initial refusal was a roar of indignation. How could he pretend to be a goddess? Yet, with no other options, the protector of the realms was forced to become an actor. They dressed the thunder god in a long bridal gown, veiled his fierce face, and hung the newly repaired necklace of Freyja around his neck. Loki, disguised as a humble maidservant, accompanied him. Their journey to Thrym's hall was a comedy of cosmic proportions. When the giant king saw his veiled bride arriving, he was overjoyed. The wedding feast began, a sprawling, raucous affair in the great hall of the giants. The disguise was immediately put to the test. Thrym was taken aback when his bride, in one sitting, devoured an entire ox, 8 salmon, and washed it all down with 3 barrels of mead. Loki, the quick-thinking maidservant, whispered excuses to the giant, explaining that the goddess Freyja had been so lovesick and eager for the wedding that she had not eaten for 8 full days. Then Thrym leaned in to steal a kiss from his bride and recoiled in shock, for her eyes burned with a terrifying reddish light. Again, Loki was ready, soothing the giant by claiming the bride had not slept for 8 nights, her eyes raw with anticipation. Convinced by the clever lies, the giant called for the hammer to be brought forth and placed on the bride's lap to sanctify their union according to ancient custom. The moment Mjolnir, heavy and familiar, was laid upon Thor's knees, the charade ended. His fingers closed around the worn wooden handle. He tore off the veil, and his rage, pent up through the entire humiliating performance, erupted. He swung Mjolnir in a great arc, and the hall became a storm of divine vengeance. Thrym was the first to fall, and then every giant in the hall met the same fate. Their celebration turned to a bloodbath by the hammer's rightful owner. This wild tale is far more than a humorous romp. It underscores the indispensable role Thor and his hammer played in the Norse cosmos. The gods were not all powerful. They could be tricked and placed in dire straits, forced to use cunning and even humiliation to secure their own survival. Mjolnir was the linchpin of their security, the great equalizer against the overwhelming might of chaos. Its theft and dramatic recovery served as a powerful reminder that even the strongest defenses require constant vigilance, and that order must sometimes resort to the most unexpected strategies to prevail. Her fiery heart could not be contained by the distant lands of her birth. The goddess Pele, a being of pure, untamed volcanic power, embarked on a great voyage across the Pacific, carrying a magical digging stick known as power. Wherever she thrust this staff into the earth, she would dig a fire pit, a new home for her immense and restless spirit. But each time she settled, the waves would come crashing in, sent by her older sister, the sea goddess Namakakai. This was no simple sibling rivalry. It was a primal war between two elemental forces, between the creative fury of fire and the relentless cooling power of the ocean. Pele was driven from island to island, her fiery homes extinguished one by her sister's crushing tides. Her journey was a trail of volcanic creation and watery destruction, a battle written in the very geology of the Pacific. She finally found a lasting refuge on the largest island of Hawaii at the summit of Kilauea. Here, the earth was young and the rock was strong enough to withstand the ocean's assault. Here, Pele established her eternal court within the vast, steaming caldera of Hailmayumau. The conflict, however, was never truly over. The people of Hawaii understand that every eruption, every river of molten rock flowing toward the sea, is a new chapter in this ancient struggle. When lava meets water, it is Pele and Namakakahai clashing once more, the land growing and reshaping itself in their violent embrace. Pele is not merely a destroyer. Her temper is fierce and her passions are legendary, but her work is fundamentally creative. The islands themselves are her art, built from countless layers of her cooled anger and her divine presence. The rich, black soil that supports life after an eruption is her gift, a testament to her dual nature. She is a goddess who takes away, but only to give again in a different form. To this day, offerings are left for her, not to appease a monster, but to honor a powerful and necessary force of nature, a reminder that from the most violent upheavals, new land and new life are born. Before order, there was only a watery, roiling chaos, a goddess named Tiamat. She was the primordial salt water, the mother of all things, who mingled with her consort Apsu, the sweet, fresh water. From their union sprang the first generations of gods, but their noise and energy disturbed the deep, timeless slumber of Apsu. He plotted to destroy them for the sake of quiet. The god E, however, learned of this plan and struck first, weaving a powerful spell of sleep upon Apsu, slaying him and establishing his own dwelling upon the sweet waters. From this act, the champion Marduk was born, a god of storms and immense power, radiating a terrifying and brilliant light, but a greater conflict was brewing. Tiamat, enraged by the murder of her husband, was stirred to a destructive fury. She created an army of monstrous serpents and dragons, creatures with venom for blood and sharp horns, and she placed her new consort, the god Kingu, at their head, giving him the formidable tablets of destiny that govern the fates of all. The younger gods were paralyzed with fear. They had no champion who could stand against the mother of chaos and her horrific legions. In their desperation, they turned to the mighty Marduk. He agreed to face Tiamat, but on one condition, that if he succeeded, the assembled gods would grant him absolute and undisputed kingship over the entire pantheon. With their anxious pledge secured, Marduk armed himself for the ultimate confrontation. He crafted a great bow, fitted it with arrows, and clutched a net to entangle his foe. He filled his body with a blazing fire, created the 7 winds to harass her, and mounted his terrifying storm chariot, drawn by 4 ferocious steeds. He rode out to meet the primordial mother. The battle was a cataclysm of the old world against the new. Tiamat opened her massive jaws, a yawning chasm meant to swallow Marduk whole. But he was too swift. He sent his evil winds raging into her mouth, inflating her body so she could not close it. Then, as she was distended and vulnerable, he let fly a single, decisive arrow. It pierced her belly, tore through her insides, and split her heart. He stood over her immense, lifeless form and ended her chaos forever. But his work had only just begun. The victor did not discard the vanquished, he used her. Marduk took the colossal body of Tiamat and with profound intention began to architect the universe. He split her carcass into 2 great parts. With one half he created the heavens, arching it overhead to hold back her celestial waters. With the other half he fashioned the solid earth below. From her saliva he formed the clouds and the mists. He set her eyes to become the sources of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the lifeblood of Mesopotamia. He organized the stars, the moon, and the sun, defining their paths and establishing the rhythm of days, months, and years. From the rebellious god Kingu, he took the tablets of destiny, securing his right to decree the fates. To honor his victory and this new cosmic order, the gods built the great city of Babylon with its temple Esagila at the center, a home for Marduk. This epic, the Enuma Elish, was not merely a story, it was the foundation of Babylonian identity. It was recited during the Grand New Year festival, a ritual that reenacted this primordial victory and reaffirmed Marduk's kingship, the king's divine right to rule, and the fragile, precious order of the world itself. It tells us that their entire civilization, from the rivers that watered their fields to the stars that guided their seasons, was literally built from the body of a defeated goddess, a constant reminder that the world they knew was carved out of and forever balanced against an ancient watery chaos. A different kind of treasure was forged not in the fires of gods, but by the hands of a mortal master. In the misty forests and epic songs of Finland, the Kalevala tells of the Sampo, a magical artifact of such power that it could secure a nation's future. The great smith Ilmarinen, a man of unparalleled skill, was persuaded to create it for the people of the bleak and shadowy land of Pohjola in the hope of winning a bride. What he forged was unlike anything the world had ever seen. The Sampo was not a weapon or a simple chest of gold. It was a living, grinding mill with a lid of many colors, a mysterious engine of creation that, when turned, produced three essential things from nothing. Its magic ground out a constant supply of salt, the precious mineral that preserved life. It produced endless grain, the foundation of food and community. And most dazzling of all, it ground out gold, the very measure of wealth and power. This single object brought absolute prosperity, turning a barren land into a paradise. For a time, Pohjola thrived, but the heroes of Kalevala, hearing of this wonder, grew envious and resolved to take it for their own people. What followed was an epic quest and a brutal battle, not between gods, but between rival peoples for control of this source of natural bounty. They succeeded in stealing the Sampo, but the people of Pohjola gave furious chase across the sea. In the ensuing fight, the Sampo was shattered, its pieces scattering into the waves and lost forever. A few small fragments washed ashore, bringing what little fortune Finland has enjoyed ever since, but the great whole was gone. The myth of the Sampo is a powerful reflection on humanity's relationship with nature's abundance. It represents our deep desire to control the sources of wealth and security, to harness the world's generative power for ourselves. The Sampo's creation was a triumph of human ingenuity, but its destruction in the struggle to possess it serves as a timeless warning. Can true prosperity ever be owned by one group alone, or does the attempt to monopolize the bounty of the earth inevitably lead to its loss for everyone? The sea, that great keeper of mysteries, claimed the Sampo, reminding us that the greatest treasures are often those we share, not those we fight to possess. A king's power can be as volatile as the sky before a storm. In the vibrant traditions of the Yoruba people, the god Shango embodies this explosive majesty. He was not always a deity of the heavens, but began as a legendary king of the ancient Oyo Empire, a ruler of immense charisma and formidable strength. His reign was marked by both great triumphs and a tragic end, a life so powerful that he was deified, his spirit merging with the very forces he once commanded. As a god, Shango rules over thunder, lightning, and justice, a divine judge who sees all from his celestial realm. When storm clouds gather and the air crackles with energy, it is Shango preparing his wrath. His voice is the deep, rolling thunder that shakes the very foundations of the world, and the brilliant, forked lightning that splits the sky is not merely an electrical discharge, it is Shango casting his thunderstones down to earth. These are not metaphorical weapons, but literal stone axe heads, artifacts that farmers sometimes find after a heavy storm, believed to be the physical proof of his divine presence. This duality is central to his nature. Shango is a fierce protector of the righteous, using his thunderbolts to strike down liars and evildoers, delivering a swift and final justice. His followers know they can call upon him to defend the innocent and uphold moral order. Yet the same power that protects can also destroy without warning. A lightning strike can ignite a terrible fire, consuming a home or a field in moments. This reflects Shango's own fiery temper, a legacy of his mortal kingship where passion and rage could lead to both glory and ruin. He is the storm itself, a necessary, awesome force that cleanses and purifies the land, but one that demands immense respect. To honor Shango is to acknowledge the dual nature of power itself, the fine line between righteous justice and uncontrollable fury, and the understanding that the same force that brings the life-giving rain can also bring the devastating fire. Death itself could be challenged with a clever trick and a well-aimed blow. Far from the volcanic fires of Pele or the storms of Shango, in the lush highlands of the Maya, the lords of the underworld held a terrible court. This dark realm was Xibalba, a place of decay and endless night, ruled by gods whose names were instruments of fear, like 1 death and 7 death. They delighted in summoning mortals to their foul ball court, only to defeat and sacrifice them in their grim games. Their latest victims were the brothers 1 Hunahpu and 7 Hunahpu, great ball players who were lured below and tricked into facing a fatal test. Their heads were severed and placed in a barren calabash tree as a warning. But from this tragedy, a new story was seeded. The skull of 1 Hunahpu spat into the hand of a maiden, a daughter of a Xibalban lord who had come to see the strange tree. This magical spittle impregnated her, and she fled the underworld to give birth to the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque. From their very origin, they were marked for a confrontation with the powers of death. The twins grew to be masterful hunters and ball players, their skills echoing those of their slain father and uncle. Their noisy games on the surface world disturbed the lords of Xibalba, who recognized the familiar, infuriating sound and issued their own summons, a trap designed to repeat history. The twins were not ignorant of their fate. They accepted the challenge, but they went prepared. Before their descent, they planted 2 rods of corn in their grandmother's house, instructing her to watch them. If the stalks withered, it would mean they had died. If they flourished, it would signal their survival. The journey to Xibalba was a path of perilous tests in itself, a river of blood and a river of pus that they crossed on their blowguns, refusing to be tainted by the filth of the underworld. They then faced the Dark Lords in their own hall, a place of terrifying illusions. The Xibalbans had created 2 special thrones, carved to look like heated stone, meant to burn and humiliate their guests. But the twins saw through the deception and refused to sit, outwitting the first test. Next, they were given cigars and torches and ordered to keep them lit all night without burning them down. Again, the twins tricked their hosts. They placed fireflies on the tips of the cigars to make them appear lit, and they painted the tips of the macaw feathers on their torches to mimic a glow, preserving the cigars and torches completely. The Lords of Death were enraged. The final and most deadly challenge was the ball game itself, played in a court that was a portal to sacrifice. The twins played valiantly, but the Xibalbans used a phantom ball, a living macaw head, to cheat. Knowing they could not win this way, the twins allowed themselves to be defeated and sacrificed. In a grand ritual, they were ground into bone dust and cast into a river. This was not their end, but the ultimate setup for their greatest trick. 5 days later, they were reborn from the waters as ragged, wandering fishmen, performing miracles in the Xibalban towns. Their fame grew until they were summoned to perform for the Lords of Death themselves. In their act, they sacrificed a dog and brought it back to life. They burned a house down and restored it instantly. The greedy lords, especially 1 Death and 7 Death, were mesmerized. They demanded the twins perform the ultimate trick on them. "You must sacrifice a lord," they insisted, "and bring him back to life." The twins agreed. They selected a victim from among the lesser lords and sacrificed him, but then refused to bring him back, revealing their true power. Then they seized one death and seven death. They did not grant them the honor of a magical resurrection. Instead, they sacrificed the two supreme lords of death, ending their reign of terror forever. The remaining Xibalban gods were cast into subservience, forced to accept that their power over humanity was now broken. The twins then ascended from the underworld, rising into the sky to become the sun and the moon, bringing light and order to a world once dominated by the fear of Xibalba. Their story is a profound testament to the power of wit over brute force. They did not conquer death through strength alone, but through patience, illusion, and a willingness to face sacrifice and be reborn. They provided a model for every Maya king who ever took to the ball court, proving that even the most overwhelming odds could be overturned with enough cleverness and courage. His boast shook the very forests he hunted. Orion was a giant of a man, a hunter of such immense skill and pride that he walked the earth believing no creature could ever best him. His arrogance grew with every successful hunt, until he finally declared to the goddess Artemis herself that he would hunt down and kill every single animal on the face of the planet. Such a threat against the natural world could not go unanswered. The earth goddess Gaia, protector of all living things, heard this boast and sent a single, tiny avenger to stop him, a giant scorpion. The creature scuttled from the rocks, its armored body nearly invisible in the dark. In the ensuing struggle, the scorpion drove its venomous stinger into Orion's heel, and the mighty hunter fell, poisoned by the very earth he had threatened. But the story of his end has another, more tragic version. Some say he was a close companion of Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, and that her twin brother Apollo grew jealous of their friendship. To end it, Apollo challenged Artemis to prove her legendary aim by hitting a distant speck far out at sea. Unknowingly, she fired a single, perfect shot, only to later discover the target was Orion, swimming in the ocean. Her grief was immeasurable. In both tales, the outcome moved the king of the gods, Zeus, or in some versions Artemis herself, placed Orion's image among the stars, forever memorializing the great hunter. But his story did not end there. Gaia ensured the scorpion was granted a place in the heavens as well, transformed into the constellation Scorpio. And so the cosmic chase began, a drama written in starlight for all eternity. If you watch the night sky, you will see Orion dip below the western horizon just as Scorpius rises in the east, the hunter forever fleeing from the creature that caused his demise. This eternal retreat explains the seasonal movement of these constellations, a permanent reminder that no pride, however great, can escape the consequences of its own ambition. A father's betrayal can transform the entire ocean. In the frozen Arctic waters, the Inuit tell of Sedna, a young woman whose story begins with a desperate choice. She lived with her father, and though many men sought to marry her, she refused them all until a mysterious fulmar, a seabird, appeared. He promised her a life of comfort in his warm tent, far from the harshness of her home. Sedna agreed and went with him, but the promise was a lie. His tent was not warm but cold and filthy, and he offered her only raw fish to eat. Her life became a misery of hunger and cold. When her father came to visit, he was horrified by her suffering. In a rage, he killed the fulmar husband and placed Sedna in his boat to flee back home. But the other fulmars, enraged by the murder, pursued them across the sea. A great storm arose, churning the waves and threatening to shatter the small boat. As the winds howled and the boat began to sink, her father was gripped by a primal terror. He believed the storm was a punishment from the birds, and in a desperate, cowardly act to save himself, he grabbed his own daughter and threw her over the side. Sedna clung to the gunwale with a fierce, freezing grip. Her father, now completely mad with fear, took his hunting knife and hacked at her fingers. One by one, her grip failed as her severed fingertips fell into the churning, dark water. As they sank, they underwent a miraculous and terrible transformation. Each fingertip swelled and grew, becoming the first of the great sea mammals. Her fingers became the seals, the walruses, and the great whales. Sedna herself sank to the bottom of the sea, where she became the powerful and vengeful goddess, the mother of all marine life. Now ruling from the depths of Adlevan, the Inuit underworld, she holds the fate of all hunters in her hands. When people break taboos or act with disrespect, their sins become tangled in Sedna's long, flowing hair. This tangles and pains her, and in her anger, she withholds the sea creatures, causing scarcity and famine on the land. In these times of hunger, an Angakuk, a shaman, must undertake a perilous spiritual journey. He must descend to the ocean floor, calm the furious goddess, and gently comb the sins from her hair. Only when she is soothed, her hair clean and free from the knots of human wrongdoing, will she release the animals so the people may eat and survive. This haunting myth is far more than an origin story. It is a powerful ecological parable that teaches a profound respect for the animals that provide sustenance. Every seal or whale is a part of Sedna's own body, a gift from a goddess who knows the pain of betrayal. It reminds the people that survival depends on a delicate balance, maintained not by force, but by ritual, respect, and the careful tending of a relationship with a wounded yet generous mother of the deep. Even the smallest creature can demand justice from the king of the gods. In a quiet corner of Roman lore, a humble bee, driven by a sudden fright or perhaps a surge of defiant courage, flew up and stung the mighty Jupiter himself. The god's bellow of pain and outrage shook the heavens. How dare this insignificant speck assault the ruler of the cosmos? In his divine fury, Jupiter pronounced a swift and terrible punishment. From this moment forward, he decreed any bee that used its sting would die for its impudence. The tiny insect, however, did not cower. She approached the throne and made her case not with a plea for mercy, but with a powerful defense of her actions. She explained that her sting was not a weapon of aggression, but the sole means of protecting her entire hive, her family, and the precious golden honey they worked so tirelessly to create. That honey, she reminded him, was a gift to the world and even to the gods themselves, a taste of pure sweetness born from endless labor. Jupiter, the great judge, was taken aback. Here was not mere insolence, but a profound argument about sacrifice and value. He saw the truth in her words, the noble paradox of a creature that produced such sweetness yet required a deadly defense to safeguard it. Moved by this wisdom, the king of the gods amended his decree. He would not make the sting fatal to the bee, but he would still impose a heavy cost. From that day forward, a bee could sting once and live, but in the act of defending her hive, her stinger would be torn from her own body, a permanent and painful injury. This simple fable carries the weight of a universal truth. It speaks to the inherent cost of protection, the idea that every act of defense, no matter how justified, comes with a profound personal price. The bee's sacrifice ensures the survival of the community and the continuation of its creative work, but it leaves her personally wounded, a testament to the burdens carried by those who stand guard. It is a poignant lesson on the delicate balance between creating something beautiful and preserving it against a world that would take it away, a reminder that the sweetest things in life are often protected by the most painful sacrifices. High above the mortal world, in the center of a cosmic sea, grows a tree that holds all the secrets of the universe. This is the tree of knowledge, and nestled within its mighty branches lies the simurgh, a bird so vast that its wings blot out the sun, and so ancient it has witnessed the world end and begin again 3 times over. Her feathers are not merely for flight. Each one is a palette of brilliant bronze, a shimmering tapestry that reflects the collective wisdom of all ages. The simurgh is far more than a simple guardian of the tree. She is the living embodiment of the connection between the earth and the heavens, a creature that understands the language of both the soil and the stars. Her immense age has not made her indifferent but profoundly compassionate, a protector who watches over the world with a deep and abiding love. This is why she so often becomes the guide for heroes on the most impossible quests, not by giving them easy answers, but by helping them uncover the truths they already carry within. She represents a wisdom that is not found in a single scroll or a whispered secret, but accumulated over vast cycles of time, a patient understanding that everything, from the smallest leaf to the greatest empire, is part of a larger, repeating story. What would it mean to be mentored by a being who has seen civilizations rise from dust and return to it, who knows the outcome of every war and the fate of every love? The Simurgh does not prevent these cycles, but she offers the clarity to navigate them, teaching that true knowledge is not about avoiding endings, but about understanding our place within the eternal return. A world without fire is a silent, shivering place. In the beginning, the Cherokee people tell us, the earth was locked in a deep and endless cold, a darkness unbroken by any flame. The animals huddled together, their breath frosting in the air, desperate for a warmth they had never known. Far above the thunders, the powerful beings of the storm looked down with pity. They sent a bolt of lightning crackling down from the heavens, and it struck a single, hollow sycamore tree that stood alone on a distant island. Instantly, the tree was filled with a roaring, radiant fire, a beacon of heat and light in the vast, cold emptiness. The sight of that distant glow filled every creature with a desperate, urgent hope. They had to bring the fire back to their home. The first to volunteer was the great raven, his black feathers glossy and proud. He flew with powerful wings toward the island, soaring directly into the rising column of heat and smoke. But the fire was too fierce. The intense flames scorched his beautiful feathers, turning them permanently black, and he was forced to retreat, his mission a failure. Next, the screech owl took his turn, his large eyes well suited for the dark. He flew bravely into the sycamore tree, diving toward the embers, but a great blast of hot air shot up from the fire, and the swirling sparks burned the rings around his eyes. He too fled, his eyes sore and red, and to this day all screech owls bear those dark circles as a memory of his attempt. One by one, other animals tried and failed. The snake, in its determination, crawled right into the flames and was horribly burned, his body twisting and writhing in pain, which is why snakes today move with a zigzag motion. It seemed the fire was a treasure too powerful for any of them to possess. Just when despair was about to settle over them all, a tiny voice spoke up. It was the water spider, a creature so small she was often overlooked. She proposed a different approach. She would not fly directly into the fire, nor would she try to carry it in her mouth or claws. She asked if she could weave a very small tusty bowl, a little pot made of thread, which she would carry on her back. The other animals, having seen the mightiest among them fail, were skeptical, but they had no other hope. The water spider set out, not flying through the air, but skimming swiftly across the surface of the water. She moved with a delicate, perfect grace, untouched by the waves. When she reached the island, she did not charge into the blaze. She carefully approached a single, glowing ember, placed it gently into her tiny, tusty bowl, and turned back for home. The ember sat perfectly on her back, not burning her, not touching the water. She moved with such steady skill that the precious spark remained alive all the way across the water. When she returned, she presented the live coal to her people, and for the first time, warmth spread throughout the land. This is why the water spider is honored among the Cherokee, a reminder that courage is not always about size or strength, but about cleverness, patience, and finding a way where others see only obstacles. It was the smallest among them, with the most delicate of tools, who finally brought the gift of fire to the world. A son's desperate need for proof could burn the world. Phaethon grew up haunted by whispers, by taunts that his divine parentage was a lie, that the sun god Helios was not his true father. The weight of this doubt became unbearable, and the boy journeyed to the ends of the earth, to the radiant palace of the sun. There he stood before his father, a being of such pure, fiery light he was difficult to behold. Moved by his son's anguish, Helios swore a sacred oath on the river Styx, the most binding vow a god could make to grant Phaethon any single wish. The boy's request was immediate and terrifying. He did not ask for treasure or a kingdom. He asked to drive his father's chariot for just one day. A cold dread filled Helios. He knew this was a wish that should never be granted. He pleaded with his son, describing the unimaginable peril. The chariot was not pulled by ordinary horses, but by 4 immortal, cosmic steeds of pure flame, breathing fire and barely controllable. The path was a steep, precarious arc across the dome of the sky, so high that even the gods grew dizzy looking down. No other god, not even Zeus, dared to take the reins. But Phaethon was stubborn, his pride now mixed with a reckless need for validation. He had his father's oath, and he would not be swayed. As dawn approached, Helios, bound by his unbreakable vow, anointed his son's face with a protective salve and placed the golden reins in his unsteady hands. The gates of dawn opened, and the fiery horses burst forth. They immediately sensed the weakness and inexperience of the driver. They bolted from the celestial road, first soaring too high, scraping against the vault of heaven and setting constellations ablaze, which we now see as the starry trail of the Milky Way. Then, in a panic, they plunged devastatingly low, diving toward the earth. The chariot's searing heat baked the great plains of North Africa into the vast Sahara Desert, burning the skin of its people dark and boiling the great rivers into sand. Mountains exploded into volcanoes and cities smoldered. The earth itself, scorched and cracking, cried out in agony to Zeus. The king of the gods looked down and saw the cosmic order unraveling. He had no choice. To save all of creation from being incinerated, he raised his master bolt, the very same weapon that had defeated the Titans, and hurled it with unerring aim. The lightning strike shattered the chariot, and Phaethon, his hair on fire, fell like a shooting star into the river Eridanus. His sisters, the Heliades, mourned him so endlessly that they were transformed into poplar trees, their tears hardening into amber. This is more than a simple story of a joyride gone wrong. It is a profound lesson about the burden of power and the danger of claiming an inheritance you are not prepared to handle. Phaethon did not desire the responsibility of guiding the son. He only wanted the glory, the proof that he was worthy of his father's name. In his desperate quest for validation, he ignored the necessary wisdom and strength such a role demands, and the entire world paid the price. The myth asks us a difficult question. How often do we reach for a power we do not understand, simply to prove something to ourselves or to others, unaware that our grasp could exceed our control? True generosity asks for nothing in return, not even recognition. During a terrible famine that left the land barren and all creatures desperate, a hare lived a life of quiet virtue. This was no ordinary animal, for within him lived the soul of the future Buddha, accumulating merit through countless selfless acts, while his friends, a jackal, an otter, and a monkey, scavenged for whatever scraps they could find. The hare contemplated a deeper form of giving. He had nothing but his own body to offer, and he resolved that if a truly needy soul came to him, he would make that ultimate sacrifice. The god Saka, ruler of the heavens, decided to test this profound resolve. He descended to earth disguised as a frail, starving old Brahmin, his body trembling from hunger. He went first to the other animals. The otter proudly presented him with 7 fish he had stolen from a drying riverbank. The jackal brought him a lizard and a pot of curd he had taken from a village. The monkey offered a ripe mango from a high tree. Each gave from their surplus, from what they had gathered through their own cunning. Then the old man approached the hare and made the same plea. The hare, without a moment of hesitation, invited him to rest. "Go and gather some wood," the hare instructed. "I will give you a gift of food once you have built a fire." Eagerly, the old man complied, stacking the wood and lighting a fierce blaze. When the flames were hot and high, the hare turned to him and spoke with a calm that belied his action. "I have nothing to feed you that I have gathered or stolen. My own body is all I possess. Please accept this humble offering." And with a final prayer for the well-being of the beggar, the hare leaped directly into the center of the roaring fire. But the flames did not burn him. They were cool as morning dew against his fur. For the moment he jumped, Saka revealed his divine form, his brilliance outshining the sun, and he reached into the fire to cradle the unharmed hare. He explained that he had come to test his virtue, and that such perfect, selfless generosity was a power greater than any in heaven or earth. To ensure that no one would ever forget this incredible act, Saka took up a mountain and, squeezing it in his mighty hand, extracted its essence. With this celestial ink, he painted the noble image of the hare upon the pure, silver face of the moon itself. This is why, in many parts of Asia, people do not see a man in the moon, but the silhouette of a hare, a permanent celestial memorial to a kindness so complete it required the sacrifice of everything. The story asks us what we are truly willing to give when we have nothing left to give but ourselves. A child's longing for light can rewrite the heavens. In the deep, uninterrupted darkness of the earliest times, the Zuni people lived in a world without stars, a world where the sun set and left behind a void so complete it felt like a physical weight. A young boy, one of the sacred Ahayu, Da or warrior twins, found this endless night unsettling. He watched his people navigate by memory and feel, and he wondered why the sky had to be so empty, so profoundly black. He did not complain to the elders or wait for a god to intervene. Instead, he felt a quiet, personal responsibility to mend the fabric of the night. He knew of a powerful, clear crystal, a sacred object that held the potential for light within its perfect form. With great reverence, he prepared himself through prayer and ritual, purifying his heart and focusing his intention. He was not performing magic, but engaging in a sacred dialogue with the universe, asking for its cooperation. When he felt the moment was right, he took the crystal in his hands, and with all the faith a child can muster, he threw it high into the air, a solitary offering against the vast darkness. The crystal soared upward, a single point of potential, until it reached the apex of its arc and shattered. But this was not a breakage of failure. It was a deliberate, glorious explosion of creation. Each fragment of the crystal ignited, blossoming into a tiny, steady flame, a pinpoint of brilliant white light against the velvet black. These were the first stars scattered across the sky in a beautiful, chaotic spray. The boy, seeing his success, continued his work. He did not just create random sparks of light. He began to arrange them, gathering certain stars into familiar shapes, the forms of the animals and spirits his people knew and revered. He traced the outline of a great bear, the curve of a serpent, the patient form of a turtle. These were the first constellations, a celestial map of his people's world, created not by a distant, unknowable deity, but by the determined hand of a child who simply wanted to see. This myth presents a universe that listens. It tells us that the cosmos is not a closed system, but a responsive one, open to the sincere prayers and brave initiatives of even the smallest among us. The starry sky is not a cold, mechanical clockwork, but a testament to a boy's courage, a gift born from a personal act of faith that forever changed the relationship between humanity and the night. It reminds us that sometimes the most profound changes begin not with a roar, but with the quiet, determined whisper of a single hopeful soul. From the Zuni boy scattering starlight to the Greek titans wrestling in the void, these stories may seem worlds apart, yet they are woven from the very same threads of human wonder. Across every continent and culture, our ancestors looked upon the same storms, the same sun, the same star-dusted night, and they all asked the same fundamental questions. Their answers, these 30 enchanting myths, reveal a shared psychological and spiritual landscape, a collective dream of how the world works and where we fit within it. One of the most powerful and persistent themes is the cosmic struggle between order and chaos. We see it in Ra's nightly battle against the serpent Apep, in Perun's eternal chase of Veils, and in Marduk's violent creation of the world from Tiamat's corpse. These are not just exciting battles, they are profound metaphors for the human condition. We build our cities and plant our fields, creating small islands of order, while the chaotic forces of nature, disease, and the unknown constantly threaten to wash them away. These myths reassure us that this struggle is not just our own, but is written into the very fabric of the cosmos. The gods themselves are fighting our fight on a grand celestial scale. Another universal instinct is to give a face and a story to the impersonal forces of nature. The sun is not a burning ball of gas, it is Amaterasu hiding in her cave or Ra sailing his bark. The volcano is not a geological process, it is the passionate and tempestuous goddess Pele. By personifying the elements, our ancestors transformed a frightening and unpredictable world into a place populated by beings with motivations, emotions, and desires that we can understand, and more importantly, influence through prayer, ritual, and respect. This storytelling instinct provided the first user manual for the planet. Why does the sun rise and set? Why do the seasons change? Before science, myth was the original framework for understanding celestial and terrestrial phenomena. The story of Persephone explains not just the seasons, but the deep, emotional rhythm of loss and return. The chase of Orion and Scorpio across the night sky maps the stars into a narrative we can remember and recount. These tales are the original science, born from careful observation and a deep need to find patterns and reasons in the world around us. Underlying all of this is a profound, unifying human need to find meaning and connection. We are small creatures on a vast planet beneath an even vaster sky. These myths are our attempt to build a bridge between our brief, mortal lives and the immense, timeless universe. They tell us that we are not alone, that the sunrise is a victory, the rain is a gift, and the stars are the scattered artwork of a child or the eternal memorial to a hare's sacrifice. Despite the immense geographical and cultural distances that separated the Norse from the Aztecs or the Inuit from the Egyptians, their stories resonate with a familiar harmony. They all reveal a species united by awe, trying to find its place in the great, mysterious tapestry of existence. This shared legacy of wonder is perhaps the greatest story of all. From the Zuni boy scattering starlight to the Greek titans wrestling in the void, these stories may seem worlds apart, yet they are woven from the very same threads of human wonder. Across every continent and culture, our ancestors looked upon the same storms, the same sun, the same star-dusted night, and they all asked the same fundamental questions. Their answers, these 30 enchanting myths, reveal a shared psychological and spiritual landscape, a collective dream of how the world works and where we fit within it. One of the most powerful and persistent themes is the cosmic struggle between order and chaos. We see it in Ra's nightly battle against the serpent Apep, in Perun's eternal chase of Veles, and in Marduk's violent creation of the world from Tiamat's corpse. These are not just exciting battles, they are profound metaphors for the human condition. We build our cities and plant our fields, creating small islands of order, while the chaotic forces of nature, disease, and the unknown constantly threaten to wash them away. These myths reassure us that this struggle is not just our own, but is written into the very fabric of the cosmos. The gods themselves are fighting our fight on a grand celestial scale. Another universal instinct is to give a face and a story to the impersonal forces of nature. The sun is not a burning ball of gas, it is Amaterasu hiding in her cave or Ra sailing his bark. The volcano is not a geological process, it is the passionate and tempestuous goddess Pele. By personifying the elements, our ancestors transformed a frightening and unpredictable world into a place populated by beings with motivations, emotions, and desires that we can understand, and more importantly, influence through prayer, ritual, and respect. This storytelling instinct provided the first user manual for the planet. Why does the sun rise and set? Why do the seasons change? Before science, myth was the original framework for understanding celestial and terrestrial phenomena. The story of Persephone explains not just the seasons, but the deep, emotional rhythm of loss and return. The chase of Orion and Scorpio across the night sky maps the stars into a narrative we can remember and recount. These tales are the original science, born from careful observation and a deep need to find patterns and reasons in the world around us. Underlying all of this is a profound, unifying human need to find meaning and connection. We are small creatures on a vast planet beneath an even vaster sky. These myths are our attempt to build a bridge between our brief, mortal lives and the immense, timeless universe. They tell us that we are not alone, that the sunrise is a victory, the rain is a gift, and the stars are the scattered artwork of a child or the eternal memorial to a hare's sacrifice. Despite the immense geographical and cultural distances that separated the Norse from the Aztecs or the Inuit from the Egyptians, their stories resonate with a familiar harmony. They all reveal a species united by awe, trying to find its place in the great, mysterious tapestry of existence. This shared legacy of wonder is perhaps the greatest story of all. Now we turn to you. What tale from your own heritage explains the rumble of thunder or the shape of a constellation? Share your favorite myth of nature or the cosmos in the comments below, and let us continue this ancient global conversation